All right, guys, we're going to be talking about bacterial unknowns and kind of the whole process for doing this. It is something that we haven't done quite the same way this semester as we have in the past, so we're all going to be learning together. It's going to work out pretty well as long as you guys follow the instructions. And we're just going to get into this and kind of show you an overview of what's going to be happening week by week. There will still be lab lectures each week. This is more of a preview, an overview of everything, and then we'll get more specifics later on. Okay. Week 8, day 1. You're going to come to lab, you're going to talk with your TAs, they're going to kind of go over the basic stuff of what you need. So it's a lot of talking. We aren't actually doing anything on day 1. This is more setup, explaining how to set up your lab archive stuff and going over that with you guys and getting you guys prepared and set up for the unknowns. There's going to be lots of things to do that day. Just keep in mind that it's not just, us talking. We will also be doing some rapid tests, which are for Streptococcus, Pyogenes, and I forget what the other rapid test we have is, but we'll go over both of those tests and kind of show you guys how they work, and just kind of give you guys an overview of like the rapid testing kits and how they are used. So the TAs will demo that for you guys. So what will happen is we will have this first panel that kind of goes over the basics, where we are trying to isolate it into gram-positive and gram-negative. And so we're going to talk about this one section at a time because it's a little weirdly spread out. So week 8, day 2, we're going to start with a mixed culture that we'll give you that has 2 different species of bacteria in it. One's gram-positive, one's gram-negative. We're going to do a gram stain to confirm that you have a nice mixed culture and assess shape and arrangement. So you should be able to tell whether or not it's gram-positive or gram-negative, and then you should be able to tell whether or not it's in a Staphylo arrangement, Diplo, random, Strepto, Tetrad, whatever. Then we will streak for isolation. Now, the streak for isolation plate, just shown over here for you guys real quick so you guys can remember what it looks like, is very important for the nutrient slant, the TSA slant. We also would like to streak for isolation with the PEA plate and the McConkey's. If you guys remember, the PEA plate, that only selects for gram-positives. The McConkey only selects for gram-negatives. And so that's the benefit of doing this. Okay? All right. Then we will grow those over the weekend. I'll put them in the fridge for you guys on like Friday or Saturday. And then we will put them in the fridge to let them chill, and then you will look at them next week on day 1, and then you will gram stain isolates from your nutrient slant, the gram positive, gram negative. You can also double check on your PEA a gram stain. Most important parts, you can't do it from McConkey's because McConkey's dye screws with the way things look, and it makes it very difficult to differentiate gram stain on McConkey's. So you're just gonna have to trust that your McConkey's is accurate. Okay, you will then take from a pure isolate and grow on TSA slants. So if you confirm that your colony that you selected for is absolutely gram-positive and absolutely gram-negative, you're going to put the absolutely sure gram-positive on a slant and an absolutely sure gram-negative. Now, week 9, day 2, you're going to double check that what you've got on your slant is just a pure stock culture. If, for instance, we do the gram staining on day 1 of week 9 and you don't have a pure culture in one of these, you can streak it out on another plate and we can verify week 9, day 2, same kind of thing. If you still don't have a pure culture, we can streak it out on another plate and double check that. But once you get your slant set up and it's like a good slant, we will then put it in the fridge and wait for the next week, which is week 10. Now week 10, day 1, we'll use our gram positives. And we're going to do a catalase test, a slide catalase test. You just take a little bacteria, you put it on the slide, and then you immediately add in hydrogen peroxide and you look for bubbles. If there's bubbles, it's positive. If there's no bubbles, it's negative. Most important facet to this is making sure you have a very clean slide, that there's no dust or any other specks on it. And when you put it on here, you don't have to put a huge amount, just a little bit. You'll add the catalase, the hydrogen peroxide, and you look for bubbles. Now, this is one of those tests where if you have a little contamination, like you weren't very careful on your slides, you're going to have a really big problem because it's going to show up positive because catalase is such a reactive enzyme, it'll create bubbles even with just a teeny tiny amount of the enzyme. If you have catalase positive, what you're going to do is you guys are going to do the Stath set of tests. Stath set of tests include Mueller-Hinton agar plates, DNase agar, and mannitol salt agar, and you're going to streak them on there. It's just a little line across, nothing fancy, nothing real crazy. You're just looking for those things on plates. If you have the strep bacteria, which is catalase negative, you're going to do a different set of tests. You're going to streak it on a Mueller-Hinton agar, and you're going to do SCT bacteriacin sensitivity. Then you're going to inoculate a BEA slant, and then you're going to look for a hemolytic pattern on blood agar. Now, BEA slant is looking, it's functionally just going to be positive if it's a dark brown color. If it's esculin positive, it's going to kind of be this dark brown color. If it's not positive, it's just going to stay light tan. So it's actually a really easy slant to kind of go over and figure out. So we'll talk more about that later. You guys don't have to worry about that right now. Week 11, so the next week, we're going to take our TSA slant. We're going to grab a whole bunch of it, put it in a suspension of saline, and we're going to mix it around for a little bit, about 3 mils of saline, and then we're going to inoculate a microgen ID test panel, which is basically these little trays pre-filled with chemicals, and you just have to add in the liquid suspension to each of these wells, and then you guys are going to incubate it, and then after it's done being incubated, you guys are going to then add some of the test result chemicals that we need, but basically you'll be able to view whether or not it's positive or negative. We're going to talk more about that later, but this is kind of an easy rapid test. It's very, very common still to this day, mostly because it's kind of got all the stuff that you need conveniently packaged for you rather than making hundreds and hundreds of tubes like we do. This is kind of pre-manufactured, so it's very quick, a little on the pricey side. So don't like spit in these or lick them because that would be bad and ruin the tests. Also, don't drop them on the floor because once they get contaminated, it kind of screws up all the results, so don't do that. Oh, and I forgot to show the nice little things. So you can see week 10, day 1 is the slide catalase test. Then we inoculate all of the media. Week 10, day 2, we read the results of the media. Week 11, day 1, we make our suspension and then put the suspension in all of these wells. And then we incubate it, and then we read it on week 11, day 2. Last little bit. Week 12, day 1, we're going to take a slant that we've made of our pure culture. So we're going to have to continually keep growing our pure culture so it stays in an active growing state. We're then going to do a DNA preparation to isolate and remove the DNA, and then we're going to purify it, and then we're going to do a PCR of our 16S ribosomal RNA gene. This is kind of a universal thing, so even though we don't know what it is, we can kind of cheat it and look up what it's going to be. We're then going to do a PCR of this 16S ribosomal gene, and then on week 12, day 2, we're going to run a gel electrophoresis. So we'll load it up in some gels, put it on some, run it on the gel, and it'll separate out, and we'll look for our band and confirm that it exists and maybe kind of what size it is. So this isn't exactly what we do in the real world, but it is something that you guys should be aware of. Okay, week 13, day 1, we're going to then go on NCBI and look up our 16S ribosomal gene sequence. And we're going to get a big, nice, long sequence from this, from our specific organism. So we should have our organism pretty well identified for both the gram-positive and gram-negative. We're going to figure out what our 16S ribosomal gene is, and then we're going to go in silico enzyme restriction, in silico restriction enzyme digest, which is a very big mouthful, which I have a hard time doing. So that's going to be our week 13, day 2. We'll come in, we will load up our information on the computers, and then we will run a gel, and the gel kind of guesses. It's not so much a guess, but it does guess to an extent the restriction digest, and it figures out where the bands will appear based off of our organism. And that will kind of cover that for the whole unknown project. Now, the last day, which is the next week, you'll be turning in your unknown report, which we'll talk more about later, but it's going to gather all the information we have in the tests that you use to produce the identification, plus background information on your specific organism. Most important thing is just making sure you take your time and doing everything carefully. The worst thing you could do is walk into this lab, not know what you're supposed to be doing, and then just kind of winging it. Winging it will end in failure 100% of the time. Read ahead of time, know what each test does, know what the results should look like, and you will do significantly better than just winging it. All right, you guys have a great weekend and stay safe.